Good Wednesday morning, and thank you for joining us here on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Jason Hackett. Let's get right to your headlines. Happening today, Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife Usha are heading to Minneapolis. They're visiting Annunciation School and talking with victims and their families 1 week after the deadly shooting at that church. That shooting leaving 2 children dead and several others hurt. Audrey Russo is at Annunciation with more.
For the victims, the survivors, and their families, this has been a week full of grief and, in the best cases, some recovery as well. Now, the Vice President and the Second Lady say they're going to meet privately with these impacted families to express their condolences and pay their respects. However, it's unclear exactly when this is happening. Now, this is all coming on the heels of Governor Walz's attempts to call for a special session on gun control laws. He says he intends to propose a comprehensive package that would include a ban on certain types of weapons. President Trump, in the last 24 hours, proposing a different approach, arming certain teachers.
And if you took a small percentage of those teachers that were in the military, that were distinguished in the military, that were in the National Guard, et cetera, and you let them carry, that's something that a lot of people like. I sort of liked it. It'd have to be studied.
Looking on social media, I haven't seen any lawmakers respond to this specific proposal yet. However, the National Education Association, a teachers union, has rebuked this idea in the past. Just within the last year, they cited a 2023 survey where 50% of teachers believed that arming educators would make students less safe. Back to you.
Audrey, thank you. Governor Tim Walz confirmed he's calling a special session to address gun control laws and school safety in Minnesota. In the last 24 hours, Walz told reporters he's been making calls to lawmakers. He says he wants to propose a comprehensive package that could include a ban on certain types of weapons.
If Minnesota lets this moment slide and we determine that it's okay for little ones to not be safe in a school environment or a church environment, then shame on us. So I'm going to call them back and ask them to do it.
In a statement yesterday, Republican House Speaker Lisa Damuth said that if Walz does call a special session, bipartisan efforts have to continue. She added, quote, if Governor Walz and Democrats are focused on partisan accusations and demands, this special session will not be productive for the people of Minnesota. A group of mayors from across the Twin Cities metro standing together demanding state lawmakers make changes to gun laws. The group is seeking a ban on assault weapons statewide, or at least a change to state law to let cities pass their own bans. They're specifically calling for a repeal of a 1985 law that prevents cities from passing their own gun regulations. But the mayors argue that cities should have local control and the ability to ban assault weapons if they want.
I don't pretend to understand all of the politics that goes into this, but what I do know is that we need to act. What I do know is these are not radical or bizarre asks. This is common sense.
Any bill passed in the special session would need bipartisan support in the divided legislature. The House's GOP Public Safety Co-Chair Paul Novotny says he's against giving cities the power to create their own gun laws, saying it would lead to a patchwork of confusing policies. This morning, we're getting an update on some of the Annunciation shooting survivors still in the hospital. We've been following Sophia Forchis, who's at last check is still in critical condition. Representative Ilhan Omar shared an update from Sophia's family yesterday. They say Sophia had to have one side of her skull removed and might need to have more removed if the swelling doesn't stay down. Her family says if that happens, she would still survive, but they're not sure what her quality of life would be. They're asking everyone to pray for her and a speedy recovery. Omar also shared an update on 8th grade student Lydia, who's in the ICU at Children's. She says Lydia is heading in the right direction and also says everyone else is now out of intensive care. That includes 11-year-old Genevieve Bissek, who is now recovering at home. In an update on her GoFundMe, her family says she's making steady progress and asks for prayers for other children and families affected here. Developing this morning, Minneapolis police are looking for the person who shot and killed a 32-year-old man in Midtown in broad daylight. That shooting yesterday was just blocks away from 29th and Clinton, where a man shot 7 people on the sidewalk in broad daylight 1 week ago. One person also died in that shooting. Police do not believe the 2 shootings are related. Suspected shooters in both cases are still at large.
We hear and we share the community's frustration and grief, and we are committed to doing everything that we possibly can to continue to try and make Minneapolis safer for all people here.
We shouldn't become numb to this senseless crimes that's taking place. We shouldn't. This is traumatic. This is tragic. It's crazy out here. And this is the time to wake up right now before it's too late.
Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara calling the past week horrific. He says his team is in the process of reviewing surveillance video around the transit station, but they say they need the public's help. Developing this morning, a student is under arrest in St. Paul, accused of bringing a gun to Johnson High School on the first day of classes. The school's principal says they got a tip that a student had a weapon on campus. Staff found the gun during a search. The principal says it's upsetting, but emphasized security protocols worked as intended. No one was hurt. That student was booked into juvenile detention. Happening soon in Chicago, National Guard troops are coming to the city. President Trump confirming overnight that he will send troops there to combat crime, but he did not say when. Trump says it's not political, pointing to the 58 shootings in Chicago over Labor Day weekend alone that left 8 people dead. Chicago's mayor and Illinois' governor, both Democrats, have repeatedly said they do not want the National Guard. A look from our nation's capital this morning, where survivors of the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein are speaking out. They're spending the next 2 days talking with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle as those lawmakers push for a full release of all the files in the case. That is despite the Trump administration saying there's nothing new in those files. Alice Barr has the latest from Washington.
As many as 100 survivors of Epstein's abuse and other sexual abuse survivors rallying near the Capitol today as one group sat down with NBC News, some sharing their stories publicly for the first time in a years-long search for accountability.
Over young people using that power.
After years of suffering, 9 survivors or relatives of Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse finding strength in numbers.
Alone we are afraid, together we are feared.
Sitting down exclusively with NBC's Hallie Jackson.
How old were you? I was 14.
And standing up for their stories they believe have been sidelined in a political fight over the Epstein files, saying none of them has been contacted by the Department of Justice.
We haven't been protected and we haven't been informed.
The survivors meeting with lawmakers, raising the pressure for the Trump administration to release more documents and reopen the DOJ investigation.
There's been a severe miscarriage of justice, a delay in accountability.
On Tuesday, the House Oversight Committee released more than 30,000 pages of Epstein files subpoenaed from the Justice Department. Most of the material had already been made public. Now, a bipartisan-led petition aims to force a vote on releasing the full files.
We want to bring justice to every single person who was involved in the Epstein evils or the cover-up thereof, but we also want to be equally certain that we protect the innocent victims.
The survivors in this room pushing to maintain what accountability they have seen, urging President Trump to rule out a pardon for convicted co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, angry over the attention she's received for her story and working to center theirs.
On the island.
Ghislaine Maxwell is serving a 20-year sex trafficking sentence and was moved to a lower security prison camp days after answering questions behind closed doors from a top Justice Department official. The White House has said President Trump is not actively considering a Maxwell pardon, but he has not publicly ruled it out. In Washington, I'm Alice Barr. Back to you.
So while we may never be able to not call it the X, this morning the home of the Wild and the Frost is now officially known as the Grand Casino Arena. That big change happening overnight. Michelle Beck is at the arena with a closer look at the project as a whole.
It truly is a massive undertaking. Overnight, I saw brand new social media accounts go live and also come with me to the doors by gate 2. Brand new stickers right here, the next set of doors just past this and also just down this line. When still to flip is that big sign at the top of the arena. The general manager tells me we'll see that in about 2 weeks. And you know, a lot is in a name. The Grand Casino is an entertainment business, so the GM says we'll get a taste of that brand at Wild Games. Arena staff are also looking into making special experiences at their concerts, their first one being Jason Aldean. It's been a hectic summer since officials announced the new partnership late June. They've changed just about everything.
It's our contracts. It's our letterhead. It's our business cards. Like all of us are getting all new uniforms. Our ushers will be in new uniforms starting on Saturday night, our operations team, their uniforms all change, our name tags change, our lanyards change, our identity cards change. The list goes on and on.
And by the way, yesterday, Kelly actually introduced herself to me as the GM of the Grand Casino Arena. She had to practice that in her head, she says, to make sure that new title is correct. It's going to require us to practice that as well and break this old habit. Back to you.
Yeah, it's certainly going to take a while to get used to that. Stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.